Good morning. It is 10:30 a.m. Well, actually, it's just after 10:30 a.m. It is Sunday morning, and that means it is time for Sundae Club, a weekly Ruby on Rails live stream, and every week we look at some Ruby on Rails. And up until now, what we have been doing each week is building an application together, and it's kind of the dummy application. Each week we look at different aspects of whether it's gems or a specific feature or how we might approach different things. And we've just been kind of looking at really loosely, really casually how we might approach those things, trying to get them coded up, but not worrying too much about anything, not diving too deep into how anything works. And then generally, despite the fact that the app is open source, the code has not been going up into the repo. And that's kind of where I want to start this week in terms of I want to make some changes to the content. Sorry, I'm just checking that the stream is working and that everything. Yeah, okay, cool. So let's start there before diving into anything. But I have kind of prefaced this on towards the end of the last couple of streams. I've just taken a couple of weeks off to move house. So if you can see, there is a new background behind me. It is the pretty hideous wallpaper of the previous owners. And also you can see a little dog bed because we have a new dog. So I've taken a couple of weeks off to get everything sorted. But what was I talking about when I was talking about some changes? So one of the things I really enjoyed about working on the application that we were looking at week to week was getting to kind of poke around in Hotwire and kind of various other bits and bobs that I was kind of interested in Rails and using that app as an example. But I wanted to really actually get something shipped. And that application that we were working on, the kind of what the application did was you create a user account. You could give it a Twitch channel ID or a YouTube channel ID, and then it would retrieve the videos or the live streams from those services, and then it would kind of build a mini web page for them. And there was also an administration area where you could administrate those videos. And towards the end, we even worked out some OAuth stuff so that you could actually edit the videos on the app side, and they would actually be updated on YouTube, which is pretty cool, including the thumbnail. If you go back and look at the last stream, the thumbnail was auto-generated by a third-party service we integrated and then uploaded it to YouTube all through the application. And that was just done really loosely. Like I said, it was all super casual, and the code wasn't particularly tested or particularly worked or anything like that. So what I want to do with the stream from now on is dive deeper into fewer things. So rather than going week to week having a different topic, I actually want to build an app to ship and kind of make this stream more of a dive into the thing that I'm being looked at. And I think that's going to change the value that people can get out of this. And that I think that's okay. I just want to kind of tell everyone in advance. And I think that maybe we'll be diving really much deeper into the planning and thinking of things. And as with most real production code or most real production features, the balance of actually doing anything versus thinking, drawing, sketching, talking, planning, all of that stuff shifts dramatically. When you're in that kind of rough prototyping stuff, everything happens. And then when you're actually trying to ship code, 99% of the time you're just talking about stuff, and then you actually write it and ship it. And it's a minuscule part of the actual job of trying to design something that gets shipped. But I think that still has values. I am going to change some of the wording on the channel because up until now it says Ruby on Rails live streams for learners. And I think it's always been, all the stuff has been loosely based on that. Hopefully it's just more like people who are interested in Rails can just grab something from it. And I think now we're not going to try and aim that content just quite as much as far as I was at all, people who are starting out, and maybe just make it more generic for anyone interested in Rails who wants to kind of dive in on the specific topic we're looking at. All right, hopefully that's That's a 5-minute rundown of what I want to do. Let's do the wrap up of the previous app. I promise going to get all that code up on GitHub. I don't know when, and also just tidy up some of the kind of show notes, the descriptions on the YouTube videos, just to make it useful for people to go back through, because I think there was some useful stuff in there, but I think you would want to be able to jump to it. You don't have to watch hours of me rambling on. I think certainly things that people have put in the comments on the YouTube videos are things they found value in, and also there's a lot of value when people comment in the chat on these streams, and things like that. So I'll try and call those out in the descriptions. No timescale for that, as usual. Life is probably going to get in the way of that for a little while. I also want to try and just adjust the cadence of this. So I want to keep the weekly 10:30 Sundays, but if we are going to try and ship an application, I'm going to try and sneak in more ad hoc streams, just if there's something that we're working on that can nearly go live, and just kind of throw in a little bit more ad hoc, so there won't be that kind of cadence, kind of being quite strict with the weekly cadence if people are following along with something. And I think it'll be just more dip in and dip out. Okay, so what is the actual application that we are going to work on? Well, there's a bit of context here, which is that I previously had an application that was for good causes in the UK, and it started off around in-memory giving. We worked with hospices and other good causes, some of them focused around life-limiting illnesses and things like that. And one of the projects we got a grant from a charity to build it out was around event registration and ticketing. And so because the events were for generally in-memory based events, we built that into the original application, but it was kind of a bolt-on, and we never really got to flesh that out fully. It worked really well. Raised loads of money for good causes, and had thousands of people use the app, and all were able to turn up and take part in their events successfully and things like that. But it wasn't really a fully featured version of an application. But what it did was kind of tickle that part of my brain that was really fascinated in the domain modeling and all of the kind of problems that are in that sphere, that space. And one of the kind of big things that I've enjoyed about the application that we have just been working on, the kind of video application, is that domain modeling, and just there are an infinite number of ways to approach any given problem or project, and there is no way that the way you have picked is the quote unquote right way. It's just so difficult to pin down, and you can never see what's coming around the corner. And everything we did in events felt like that. And also then going through that kind of product cycle with it, and looking through and seeing just how every single application we looked at to achieve a certain goal or solve a certain problem did things really differently, like different in the UI, different in the API, different outcomes for the users. And there wasn't even like a standard, like, if you're doing, I don't know, I guess a blog, even then it's there are a million ways to do that as well, but it wasn't just like fill in a form, click a button and have the thing happen. Genuinely, there was just so many aspects to it. And that really caught my imagination in terms of, wow, okay, there's so much going on here. So that's the application that I want to ship and have people be able to register for events and attend them, because I think that was kind of bringing people together and doing all that really good stuff. So it really scratched all of the things that I love about those projects, which is shipping code, but also having real people use that code and then having real world outcomes from the code that you've shipped, which is an amazing thing. So what does that actually look like? Let's go and look at some stuff other than my face, because that's really what. So we're 10 minutes in. That's a lot of talking for a stream. And the other thing I want to let's jump over to look at some stuff. So the other thing I want to look at today is how much we're going to start from scratch, or whether or not at all we're going to start from scratch. And there are a couple of off-the-shelf Rails projects that seem to offer these like kits that come with a bunch of functionality you pre-built that you are likely to need. So it's like Teams, billing, active storage stuff, and they all seem to use the Rails default stuff, but they just basically, for a small fee, or give you I don't even know how small the fees are, but like for a relative fee, they'll just take you a certain way down the road. And that might be something that we want to explore for this, because maybe we just want to skip over all of the like Rails new fun and just get to where we're going. So for example, on previous streams, you remember we spent ages setting up Tailwind and active storage and all of that stuff. But that's not really solving the core problem that your application gives a shit about. Like that doesn't help us register people for events. That's like, well, they want to upload files. Great. Just fix that. Like just have that work. That's not a problem. So we're going to take a look at that. And then the other thing I want to take a look at is the problem space, the kind of what interesting things are about this. So I've knocked up a note here that I think is interesting to go through. This took 2 seconds to think up all of the fun, the kind of fun stuff that we bumped into. And this could be 100 times longer. I'm just getting some coffee. Okay. So this is just about different types of event, but everything has this this kind of knock-on effect to the type of outcome of the application we're going to build. So let's. I don't even think I've got. I don't even think I've got some of the things on here that were in my mind. I haven't even captured everything. So registration versus interest. So I think this one can come up to the top. I think I'm interested in this one pretty highly. So like I've just put V, but like or versus. But I don't really mean V. I think I mean it's not one or the other. It's like how do you accommodate both? And how do you accommodate both without confusing the end user and your code? And how would you do one and then retroactively in the code come back and do the other one? So let's talk about what I actually mean by these. So registration versus interest. So if you think about something like meetup.com, often with Meetup, my experience of that application is you're kind of saying, yeah, I might attend this, and it could be a Zoom call, it could be a physical event or something like that. You're basically saying, I'm registering my interest, but you don't have like a ticket necessarily. Again, maybe Meetup offers this functionality. It's just not my use of it. I'm just using that as an example. So you generally just say, yeah, I'm interested in attending this. And it kind of acts like a placeholder, a reminder for you. And it lets the organizers know that you might be attending, and you show up on their list and everything. But it's not like there are, again, in my usage, 50 spots and you've been allocated one, and therefore there are only 49 left. It's okay, well, you're just registering your attendance, and that's absolutely fine, especially for other ones. For registration, there's often more questions. There's often, hey, you have to fill in a form, give us this information. Maybe it's a meal and you have to give your menu options, or whatever it is. And there's then often a purchase at the end of that. So registration is, in my mind, give me more information and potentially give me money, and you are taking up a spot on a limited amount of inventory. So there's 50 tickets, you take one, there's 49 left. And so I think that's really different for how we might model them, how they might behave in the UI for both the attendees and the organizers. Super interesting. That also then bleeds over into physical versus virtual. So that is, do you have a limited number of spots? Because in a physical space, maybe there's only 100 or 50 places that people can sit, and they've only they literally can't allow that to go over that. Whereas for a virtual event, it could be unlimited, or maybe it's capped a different way. What does that mean? What fields are different? So for example, there's probably a location field that you care about if it's a physical, whereas virtual might need a Zoom call address, things like that. Just how you approach the actual like start time and end times. Time zones are probably more of an issue perhaps for virtual events, because people could be attending from around the world. All of that fun stuff is in that modeling. One-off versus recurring versus series is really interesting. So one-off event, pretty simple. Hey, we're doing a thing. It's next Thursday. It'll never happen again. Fine. Then you end up with recurring events. This is every week on Thursday at 10 a.m. Cool. So Sundae Club is a recurring event, but like all good calendar events, sometimes we skip some, sometimes they run late, but whatever, they have to move around. And often recurring events are just simply a series of one-off events. However, there are also series events. They might be, okay, well, we're running a 3-day event. So it's not one-off. There are they're 3 individual days. So you can attend day 1, day 2, day 3, or any combination thereof. And so then again, are you registering? Are you registering your interest? Are they online? Are they virtual? So each of these choices feeds into the other complexity mentioned above. And if you've used any event registration software, you'll often have a really simple form to start with, and then you'll click like advanced options, and there's just pages of stuff that you can change. And this is why this is a really interesting space. So one location versus multi-location. This is generally for physical events, but again, does it have to be? Like, you might be running a virtual conference which has different Zoom calls that people can join or something like that throughout the day. Maybe it's multi-channel, multi-track, whatever you call those types of conferences. Whereas for physical events, you might have multi-location. So that multi-location could be you've got different buildings. It could be you've got different events going on in one building and they're different rooms. It could be, let's say that you've got a series of events over 3 days and also over multiple locations. So you could book, day 1 at location A, but day 2 at location B, and then day 3 at also location B, and any combination thereof. Again, that's all fun stuff. Do you treat those as actually 3 separate events, but then people can want discounts on purchasing 2-day tickets for a 3-day event and all of that fun stuff. We've got ticket types. Now, this is a really standard one for something like if you've used Eventbrite or pretty much any ticketing platform. There's this idea of you can have a standard ticket, you might have an early bird ticket, you might have discount tickets. And again, every event organizer will have their own needs for this. Whereas a simple ticket can just be like, hey, maybe we just need your email address so that we can email you details of it. And the ticket types often end up really bleeding into the next item down. So ticket types is probably the most common way of dealing with this that I've seen. The next one is allocation limits per ticket type. So you've got early bird tickets, for example. There are 100 of them, and you have 1,000 spots at your event. So you've got 100 of those, and then you've got 900 other tickets to sell after that happens. But then you have really fun things where people can refund their early bird tickets. So 10 people refund their early bird tickets. So that then you have to handle the allocation of the ticket type versus the actual inventory of people that you have at the event. So those 10 people aren't coming. So do you release that inventory back into the pool? Do you release them back as early bird tickets? Does that depend on the date? Just again, all of this stuff bleeding into each other. And there's not always a standard way of doing this, and you can decide how you want to do it, or you can make your user interface more complicated by giving the organizer the tools to do this. But depending on how confident an organizer they are, that might be an overwhelming amount of information. So you can make this as complicated as you like. These are all things we're going to dive into, by the way. This is just a small subset of the problems that I want to dive into over the next streams. But in code, we're actually going to try and build these things out. So this was one of my favorite ones. So individual versus group versus team. Now this is a big part of what we were doing on the space for events for good causes, because group events and team events are really huge there. So individual is, I'm a person, I want to buy a ticket, I want to do a thing. Maybe I want to buy 3 tickets. And again, that comes down to, do you buy one inventory unit with a number 3? So are you just buying 3 slots, or are you registering 3 people and we need to know the details of those 3? How do you allocate the actual ticket purchase versus the inventory of the people being taken out of the pool of spots that are available? Group events, perhaps maybe you've got a ball and you've got or a meal and you've got tables of people is a good name for group. Sporting events is a good group one to register for, and then because you want the details of each individual is usually why you would want group events. So you need some health and safety information, some sort of legal sign off. Maybe each person you need to have the contact details of each person so that you can email them for GDPR purposes, all of that fun stuff. Team events is where you then want those people to certainly for us, we wanted them to take part in the event through the application as well at the time. So team events was team names. You create the team or the group, and then people come and join. They come and register separately. So you, as the group organizer, you want to buy a ticket for yourself and register the team. Like Max's team. But then you need the 9 other members of your team of 10 to each come individually and register as well. So that bumps into some really cool privacy, I say cool, but like really interesting privacy questions. At what point do you expose team names? What do they need to know before they can join a team? Do they have a code? Who sends that to them? Do they need to have their email address put in? Are there limits to the team sizes and group sizes? Just all of those fun things. And this is something that all of these ticketing applications all handle. Paid versus free is a good one. So that includes discounts, that includes different ticket types at different prices, quantity discounts, refunds, all of the fun Stripe and PayPal stuff around, let's say that you have 100 spots and you know they're going to go really quickly, but you're waiting for callbacks from something like a Stripe webhook, so that both users click confirm at the same time. But with something like a payment intent from Stripe, you're waiting for the webhook back from Stripe, but they come back in a different order. So your actual allocation for the users might get signed off at a different time, and maybe you've pre-allocated them, but their time is running out and stuff, like all that fun stuff around race conditions around that. That's all wrapped up in the payment aspect of it as well. And then we've got offline and online purchase. So a big thing around this is allowing people to purchase tickets or register for something that you're doing, and then you need to administrate those purchases. So someone turns up to you on the day and is like, hey, I want to register, but you still want them in the system so that they are able to get the mailing list, or you need that, again, health and safety sign off or something like that. So your administration panel for your organizers needs to have everything in it that the users can do and more, and also allow them to essentially administrate those things on the day and on the fly in the meantime. So maybe someone has signed up for an event as a group of 10 and they can't come, but they might say, especially for good causes, they might say, we don't want a refund, so cancel our spots, but don't cancel don't refund the amount. And then they might say, well, 5 of us are coming, so can you then release those 5 slots, but each team is a minimum of 10. Or again, loads of fun stuff, all rules that are defined in code and in the application that you have to get across to users that will all have different needs and different requests, all fun stuff. And there are things we can dive into there. So that was just like a quick list off the top of my head. And we've already touched on huge domain mapping questions and fun stuff that a lot of these applications, event registering and ticketing applications, really spend a lot of their time working on. And what I found from these applications is that most of them tend to specialize. Maybe they support lots of these, but you will really get a vibe. Like, I can't think of a better word for it, a vibe of the type of application that they're looking to do. So like really simple signals, like you get a lot of conference organization software and a conference event software. We worked on a music festival once, and that was interesting seeing how they approach that. And sometimes if you go for the conference one, for example, just the cost of the software alone is phenomenal just before you even start. Like they don't have a price on the site and you have to call them up and they're like, oh yeah, it's tens of thousands of pounds just to even get going, because you're running a conference. And so you probably have sponsors and you probably have money. Whereas you've got things like really affordable, small, lower end things, which is like, it's mainly around free events or cheap events, tickets below, let's say £50. And they have some group registration perhaps, but nothing phenomenal. Or maybe they don't support physical versus virtual. It was an old one before COVID, or maybe they don't have recurring events and things like that. And then when you think of all how complex some of this stuff is, when you look at what some of the really big solutions that do everything like Eventbrite, you can see why they're so expensive, because they wrap in that kind of 5 to 6.5% ticket price plus a fixed fee. But what they actually have to maintain under the hood is impressive. I don't think the pricing is necessarily to do with the complexity, but there are obviously there's a lot to handle there, and they do support it really well. And there's a lot going on. I think that what I found was that there are other aspects that people, if you happen to fit the niche of the event organizer, the actual things they really care about once their needs are met, they're willing to adjust some certain aspects of how they administrate the event if they can brand and communicate with their attendees really well. That's actually a really powerful thing. So they care about a lot of this stuff, but only at the start, at the organization side. Once they're actually running the event, they care about the communication, the access to data, stuff like that. And for good causes, GDPR is a big, data privacy is a big deal. The other kind of aspect of that is a lot of event organizers begin the event without having thought all of these things through. And that is really difficult when it comes to the user interface. So you're like, okay, we're running this thing next Thursday. Just put it on Facebook. So they start with Facebook events, for example. But then they're like, actually, it runs for the next 4 weeks. And they're like, do we have 4 individual Facebook events, one for each? Or do we have one? And then it confuses people because the date is different, or they keep changing the date, and then that moves people's iCals. And they're like, actually, we are only charging on the 3rd Thursday because that's when you get a free cake with entering or something. Oh, not free, but like that's when you get a cake. And suddenly all these things that they didn't think about in advance are appearing to them in a user interface for their event organization. It could be Facebook, Eventbrite, something like that. And they're like, I didn't think any of that through because that's not I just wanted to create a page for the first event. So that is all totally normal stuff and all really, really normal to bump into. Morning, Danny. Hello in the chat. I really appreciate people dropping in the chat. I do know that 10:30 on a Sunday morning is not ideal streaming time for people, so I have appreciated it over the last few months. I'm not moving the time of the Sunday morning because it is still the time I have available. I did say at the start of this stream there would be more ad hoc ones in the evenings, but I don't know when they'll be coming. But that doesn't move this one because it's just really the time I have free. And now I have a dog, so I have to walk the dog in the morning. Okay, so let's kind of park all of that for now. That is basically a taste of the problems we're going to be diving into. I've opened a Jamboard, but that's kind of not where I'm going to go now. So we've used Jamboards in the past, and we've just drawn loads of boxes and drawn arrows between them. And I think that we're going to be doing a lot of that. So I think there's going to be less Rails, definitely to start with. But let's dive into some Rails stuff for now. And what I actually want to look at is I want to look at Jumpstart Rails, and I want to look at Bullet Train. And if anyone is aware of any more of these, please hit me up because I'm really interested. So these are some projects, like I mentioned at the start of the stream, that have these kind of like, so this is SaaS, software as a service in a box. Bullet Train saves you months of development by starting you off with all of the features that are the same in every SaaS, so you can focus on what makes your app unique. And then this is Jumpstart Pro helps you build products incredibly fast. It provides all the foundations you need to build a product so you can focus on your idea. So both of them are saying the same thing that I was talking about previously, which is I've just listed a bunch of cool problems for event organizers and people who run event software that you want to solve. None of them care about Rails. Like, they don't care about how Rails does anything, the fact that it's web-based, any of that stuff. Like, they're all in our domain and that we want to dive into. How we get CSS through an asset pipeline, like, no one cares about that stuff. So what I'm thinking is maybe we could use one of these off-the-shelf templates just to get us going. Now, there are a couple of questions I have around this because I want to live stream the code and I'm not sure what license these come with and whether I would be allowed to do that. Because I don't want to buy some code, put it on a live stream, and then have the people reach out and say, that's not cool. Because that's not cool. I don't want to do that. So I only really, because, and just an important thing to mention is that what these apps are doing, you can do yourself. Like, you don't have to use one of these. You could just, like, if you look at what's included here, payments, multi-tenancy, Hotwire, invoicing, this is all stuff we looked at on the stream already. So all on the previous episodes. If you want to do this yourself, just start with Rails New, do all this cool stuff, you can build it. All they're doing is giving you, I mean, this one's called Jumpstart. It's literally a jumpstart. It's taking you from A way over to B without you having to spend hours of time in the middle. one of the downsides of this, if you're thinking of using one, is that there might be specific ways that you want your, let's say, API or your user impersonation. There might be a really specific way you want it to work. And now if you start with one of these Kickstart projects, you would have to undo the way they've done it and put yours back in, which is fine, but you just need to bear that in mind. Rails is an opinionated framework, therefore these Kickstart projects must have to be opinionated on top of that, and if they don't match up with your opinions, then you've got to do something about it. And so if you're more experienced, I think that's not a problem, because maybe, how many things are there here? Let's say 20 things here. You only care about 2 or 3 of them being different and everything else works great. So cool. Whereas if you're a learner, perhaps maybe you just want to go with this and you're like, well, I'll just do it the way they do it because it gets me so much further. But then as you get more experience, you might be like, oh, I actually hate the way they do this. I really want to do, I don't know, notifications really differently. And that's fine. You just then have to go and take it out, but you have to bear that in mind. So this is, I'm seeing more and more people mention Paddle. This is totally off topic of everything, but I've used Stripe, I've used Braintree, and I've used PayPal. I don't know much about Paddle, but I'm hearing more people mention it, but not at the speed. I remember when I first heard about Stripe, then I didn't hear anything else about it for, well, like I didn't hear, like, I heard about it consistently from the first day I heard about it to today. It has just been non-stop. Like it just became the default so incredibly quickly. Whereas Paddle, I heard about, I think maybe like months ago, and I'm just hearing people mention. So I'm interested to see what that is and what's going on over there that's different from Stripe. So there's obviously some iOS stuff is now going on over here, which I'm really interested in a bit, but then I'm just aware that I don't have a huge amount of spare time to dive into all of this stuff. Okay, so it's basically everything in here. So it comes with Tailwind. That's what we were using in the other application, which I'm more than happy to roll on with. I really enjoyed using view components. I think it would be, is that they mentioned here? No, they're not mentioned. Okay. We spent some time, I mean, this is basically the episode list for the previous streams. We spent ages on Hotwire and Turbo. We didn't deal with multi-tenancy, but I've dealt with that before. And multi-tenancy with subdomains is a complete pain in the bum. But it's pretty cool outcomes, but it is a pain in the bum. And custom domains is pretty cool as well. Payments we didn't touch on at all, really. I don't think we touched on at all. But there's a phenomenal volume of content out there for that. Authentication, we just used Devise. Didn't look at invoicing. Didn't sort of look at announcements, but we did look at notifications a lot. Staging environment. I mean, Rails comes with this. Oh, did Rails not come with staging anymore? Did they cut that out? I'm not sure. Customizable, internationalization, and social logins with OAuth. Okay, so it comes with a bunch of stuff. And I think when I would go back to here, there is actually a stripped down version of this. So this one is MIT. So what we could do is, if we're not allowed, what I might do is reach out to the, I think this one is from Chris at Go Rails, I think. So I think I might reach out on their support email and say, hey, if I purchase, how much does this cost? It's a Rails single site 249 per year. Wait. I thought this was like a Kickstarter. Do I have to pay for it? Do I have to pay for it every year? I thought it was just a one. Okay. Why is it a subscription? Oh, okay, right. Okay, cool. So you can buy the Kickstart, but you then don't get the updates from that. Okay, well, I was only thinking about it. So 250. So what's that? 100. So it's under 200 quid, I would think. But again, you're saving yourself a bunch of development potentially, maybe not. Right, so then you buy it as the Kickstart. You then start twiddling with it yourself, and it's up to you whether you keep that subscription going. I'd be interested to see how are these just a series of gems then under the hood? Is each of these features a gem, and then you get the updates through a gem? I'm not really sure how that works. because as you change your application more and more, the core of your application will become more difficult to upgrade with their changes because you have to keep things in line with them. But that's totally fine and normal. There's no problem with that. 170. Oh, thank you, Danny. That's 179. Okay, that's for the amount of work that you would be saving. That's pretty reasonable. For example, you want to use Aspect for your test, just add it. So you can make changes to the code. Does it mention the license that the code comes under? Why is it a subscription? Oh, well, license, literally a, there's literally an FAQ. That's really useful. Permitted use. Okay. Restrictions. Making copies. Alter, transfer, or derivative version. Yeah, I wonder if. I just want to reach out. If I do use one of these things, then I just want to reach out and say, hey, if this code ends up on a stream, like, how pissed off would you be? Because they might be like, yeah, it's really cool. This is good promo for us, or they might be like, no, we don't want people. Copying how we do things. But then they've open sourced a bunch of it anyway, so I don't know. We'll see how they get on. I might just reach out about that. Because I don't think, from the way I'm reading this, it doesn't explicitly prevent us from streaming it. Reproduce. Unless you have been granted Pro Go Rails, you may not reproduce, distribute, or transfer the software or portions thereof to any third party. So is streaming code reproducing and distributing the code? Interesting. Okay, not sure about that. Okay, so let's take a look at this other one. So this one I think is way more expensive, is my memory of this. So this is, yeah, okay, so this is $14.50. So that's like $1,000. That's probably a bit out of my budget for my streaming. I think once a week is not, a once a week thing is not something that, okay, $5.50 per year. They're all per year. Monthly version process. The live demo signups. Okay, I'm a bit lost on that. What's later? Use it again, $5.50. To use with a new client. Pay for personal projects when you're ready to deploy. I'm not sure. Below you can see example of bullet train support for freemium business models and different categories of plans which you can use for monthly versus annual. So the live demo plan to see how we use signups. Okay, so I can use a demo. Great. I'm assuming that's just using the actual application, the Kickstarter application. Then I can get started here for $1,500, just under. Great, get access to all of that plus 1 full year. Oh, okay, and then if I want to pay after that, it's then a subsequent $5.50 a year. Is that right? Is that how I'm reading that? Okay, so let's see what this one's got for 1,500 quid as opposed to the other one. Well, not 1,500 quid, less than that. Code generation, super scaffolding, inspired by Rails scaffoldings, but does so much more. Pricing page description, gorgeous UI template, account, user account management, teams, security permissions. Bootstrap or Tailwind. Okay, so you actually get options within this one. This one is less opinionated, more configurable, I'm guessing. Complete test coverage. Okay, so it seems my reading of this landing page is that and certainly these screenshots, is it gets you further faster, which is why it's more expensive. That makes sense. Oh, here we go. So we're going to jump into the docs for these. So, like, you've got different UI themes. That's pretty cool. This seems more for someone who's going to be doing lots of applications. So if you work at an agency, this must be pretty handy. Or you do loads of like MVPs. Like you work at one of those agencies that helps startups work out if their idea is any good. Or maybe if you did little like Shopify apps, Heroku apps, any kind of platform that needed loads of small instances that you didn't really want to have to maintain. This seems like a really good bet for stuff like that, because those Shopify apps, you just need a dashboard generally. The actual work is in the integration with something like Shopify or I don't know, any of those big providers where you can build like WordPress, anything where you can build an app on top of their API and then charge people for it. This feels like it would abstract away the entire problem of having to build any of the hard stuff, and you could just focus on that integration. You could pay for this part, build the Shopify integration, and have this run all of the teams and all of that stuff. Just wire it up, which is pretty cool. Account and public namespaces, for controllers and views, multiple team types. Okay, and let's see what the open source version of the Jumpstart one does, because maybe we could just go with this just to, because it's MIT. I don't have to worry about the licensing stuff. We've also built Jumpstart Pro, which is a version of Jumpstart that includes payments with Stripe and Branch. Okay, so it doesn't have payments in, it doesn't have team accounts, it doesn't have Tailwind CSS. Okay. God, I'd almost pay that money just not to do that Tailwind again. There's a stream on it. I've genuinely just done it within the last 6 months, and I don't really want to do it again. I enjoyed the outcome, but not the not the getting it working particularly. Maybe I'm just having a bad memory about that. It wasn't too bad. Okay. So what's in here? Like, what's is there like models and stuff? Announcement, service. What's a service? Oh, okay, like an OAuth service that we can use. Okay. And that goes through devise, OmniAuth stuff. Twitter client, I see. Announcement type. Oh, I don't know. I can just really feel myself ending up typing in Rails new to a console. I'm just not sure we quite meet the needs of this. Well, don't forget that we've got another option, which is the we could just get the UI. So Tailwind UI was, so previously we had we used Tailwind on the previous application, and they had a paid option of here's the UI. So we could use this. So they had landing pages. So basically what we could say is, let's not bother faffing around with working out how the admin is going to look. We could just dive straight into solving the domain mapping problems. Because what's that, 1.8? So I like this one. This one's in GBP already. Are they just localizing that? Because they must be American. And again, it's the same notion. You can build all of this stuff yourself. We covered, there's like 2 or 3 previous Tailwind streams just looking at this stuff in this channel. So feel free to jump back if you really want to dive in. But the idea is that like Tailwind is open source. Tailwind is free if you like it. If you want to do everything yourself, you totally can. But there are these pre-made user interface components, and they have some stuff here. And they're basically just using the tools that they've given you, and you can copy and paste them. And I think the ones with the little padlock icons are the paid ones. Yeah, okay, so, and they're pretty cool. And don't forget, you could then still configure Tailwind under the hood. So this could be, these are components that use the defaults you've set. So you could change the font, you can change all the actual like spacings and stuff, and personalize these down. You can still change them afterwards. It would be really handy if they came with like pre-made view component modules as well. Maybe there's an app there for someone to build. Saving developers the hassle of actually kickstarting something does seem to be an industry, and I'm into it because I don't want to do any of that work. It's boring. Okay, so I'm not going to make this decision right now. I'm going to give this some thought, and I think next week, now that we've got, what are we up to today? It's 11:16. I think next week we can have made these decisions. I don't really want to mess around too much. I'll get in touch with the peeps at Jumpstart, because I think this one is the most likely. Yeah, just to see what they say about streaming it, and I quite like the fact that it has an iOS version as well. That's pretty cool. So you pay for that separately. But the thing that occurs to me about the iOS version is one of the things with event applications is the administration and on the ground administration of the event. So lots of times we would have in the run up to the event, the organizer has lots of time and is at a tablet or a wider device often, and is on their desktop. On the day they're on their phone, because they're at an event, it's for a physical event, and you've got things like check-ins or whatever you want to call them, like validation that someone who's registered has attended. You've got a lot of on-the-fly editing, so people book a group of 10 and someone extra turns up, or someone doesn't turn up and they need to reallocate that. There's a lot of stuff that happens on the day. Generally, that is often done post-fact. So there's a lot of stuff where like 10, 11 people show up and you've got like a physical human who's just like, they're just like, fine, chuck him in there. They sometimes then have to do like post-billing or how are you going to get the money, or a refund afterwards. There's a lot of customer service that they then maintain afterwards. And again, you might want an iOS application where they could do the check-ins, or where they could where the individual attendees could do the check-in. Perhaps Eventbrite has an application where you can do that. It shows the attendees QR code, I think, and then the organizer's application will read the QR code and mark them as attended. All of that fun stuff. So again, having an iOS version, but I think we can just do that without using the Rails version. It's just a client, right? Like, it doesn't matter. So there's loads of fun stuff. Okay, so let's make a call. I'm going to make a call on those during the week. So this is a change. So I am going to kind of kick a repo off, and we will decide what to do and see if it's okay to stream these, any of these. In terms of where we're going to start then, I think what we'll do next week is either do Rails new, and I think a good way to approach this is maybe not trying to start with the main repo, maybe just try and do some spike repo. So we just build out the initial use case, and maybe do like, I think that's something that I've done a lot in the past, is just treat Rails instances as really disposable. So you're just like firing something up, trying something out, and maybe even having a user interface template thing off the shelf will make that really easy. And we can come up with a couple of scenarios. So where's my note gone? I think we can take a look at some of these. So I think some starter scenarios. I think I have always found it way easier to be aiming towards something that you know is about to get used. So what I was wondering is maybe we could run some like Sundae Club sessions where people want to attend and pair together or something like that. Like we can run events. Like, that's the best way to make software, is to use the software. So we could run an event that people could, we could run some sessions where people want to pair, or maybe we make people register to come along to a special stream. I don't know what people want, but like basically we just build something. So we could build a kind of register your interest for a simple event. And that, like, looking at the domain modeling for that, could then answer a bunch of questions around like, okay, well, that would immediately have us start thinking about some real fields we would need, some real data, some real models, and actually how they start to interact with each other. Maybe we then have another prototype, spike app, whatever you want to call it, where we have a I think I'm personally more interested in groups and teams more than recurring and multi-location. So multi-location is often, I say often, but like it could be like a conference spread over different halls. Just so many things like that. I think I really like team events. I like groups of people registering to do stuff. Whereas you can always kind of solve the multi-location problem really quickly by just forcing each one to be a different event. It makes a complete hassle for organizers because they can't easily move people between locations. But I think I'm more interested in prototyping something like a group first. So we could have like so we could have a different app. So the reason I'm putting these as separate things is we could actually do these as different streams, but spike the models on the stream for the different applications, and then with those different spikes we can then look and be like, okay, well, what actually was different between the two? What was the same? How would we have these coexist? What did we put together a user interface for the admin? Maybe we do the models on a Jamboard like this, but then actually build the UI in Tailwind or something like that, because that will allow us to go really quickly. Because I think like recurring and series, things like that, like you've already got user interface once you're registering an event. Recurring is just like more of that. It's all of that fun time and date stuff. Then I think for things like ticket types, I'm just running down this list. For things like ticket types versus versus simple tickets. So I effectively, the last time, yeah, that one. Sorry, I'm just thinking about, so ticket types. Do we want to spike an application where we play with that? Because one of the fun things about ticket types is questions the organizer wants to ask the attendee. So let's say that there's some information you need from each person attending, and you effectively end up with a form builder with a bunch of pre-made forms in a lot of these applications. So it's like age, because maybe you need a minimum age, you need an email address, or you need quantities as a common one. So like how many of something do you need? So you effectively end up with a form builder, but often the fields that you need to ask each attendee are different depending on the ticket type. So let's say you have a children's ticket type versus an adult's ticket type that are two different prices. But you need, for children, you need to say, do you have a parental consent? Do you have stuff like that? And that can get really funky really quickly, because again, it's not the user experience of registering, because that's hopefully pretty straightforward. Usually it's just filling in a form. It's the user interface of the admin administrating that. So here's a scenario. You're running a physical event that's just a one-off, but you've got early bird tickets that are different prices from the others, but you've got children's tickets and adults tickets, and you have to have more information about each child. So you've effectively then got 4 ticket types, because you've got early bird children, early bird adult, non-early bird child, non-early bird adult. And again, are they per person, or are they ordering quantities of each ticket type? So let's say you order 2 children's tickets, but you need the names of both children for your application, or you need parental consent signed or something for each one, or you need a different email address for each one, but you can't have an email address because they are under a certain age. So for GDPR, you need an adult's email address. All of that really fun stuff starts to come into play. So is it worth us perhaps... sorry, if you see me looking to my left, by the way, I've moved. I now have a window with a view out of to my left. So I'm actually looking at the trees while I'm thinking that through. Previously, I just had I was on my right was a car park. So yeah, maybe that is a cool thing we could prototype out as well. We could build ticket types, and the scenario being like ticket types for each type. And the solution to a lot of these problems that I'm kind of outlining, these are kind of really complex scenarios, is that most platforms don't support all of these things. They basically limit what you can do, and as an organizer, you then decide where to make your cutoff. So let's say that you don't have a full form builder, there's only 10 fields that you have the option of adding to a ticket type. You just make do, and the most important thing is that you have a way to communicate to the attendees when they're registering if they need to do something after that. So often it'll be like, hey, we need you to sign a form. We don't have a way in this application of getting you the form, but make sure you put your email address in, and we will send them, and then you have to fill in one per kid or whatever it is. So we don't have to solve all these problems, but the design and build of the application is setting the limits and the parameters of what you're willing to support, and knowing when you're not going to go in that direction, and kind of looking at other applications and what they do and seeing how they handle those. So maybe we could have like we could create some dummy accounts for similar tools. So we could have Eventbrite and all that stuff. So that as we're going through these streams, so you go and look at how those applications do it. And that could be really interesting, I think, for kind of engineers often don't necessarily get involved in that. It might be a product manager who's doing more of that stuff, and then you get a presentation or a slideshow of some other things. Whereas I think if we actually go and dive in and do some of that product management on these streams, I think it could be pretty interesting as well. And what are we looking for? What do we care about? And then what is the process of decision making to get an actual shippable set of features? Where are their limits? What are the lines we're not going to cross with them? What are we willing to expand into in the future? And as usual, like, there's no way you build anything without completely shooting yourself in the foot within the first few hours, pretty much. Okay, so that is what this stream is going to be for a little while. That's a lot. I know there's no Rails in this stream, but I did say that we were changing the format, so I think I'm okay with that. I think that each of these is going to be significant, so I'm not going to dive into them today. I'm going to wrap up. So we're hitting an hour, so I think I'm going to wrap up for today. And I'm interested in it, if anyone has any feedback in terms of anything they're interested in seeing for that stuff, for this new application that we're looking to build, or anything they're interested in diving into in terms of on the Rails side. If anyone has used one of these Kickstarter tools, let me know. That would be super interesting. A link to my Twitter is always in the YouTube video description, and you can always leave a comment on these videos, and I will generally see them. And yeah, I think that's, I'm going to wrap it up for this week, just because I want to I've got a bunch of stuff that I want to go and do. So I think we'll probably do a longer stream next week. We'll go and build one of these spikes. We'll do a big thing. Again, I don't know if during the week I'm going to get a chance to do anything ad hoc, but now that we're a bit more settled here, I'm hoping that's something that that we can do a little bit more. Thank you so much for everyone who has watched, and thank you to Danny in the chat for today. And yeah, thanks for sticking around. We've seen some people subscribing. I will go back and change all the thumbnails in the existing YouTube channel. And I don't know where people are finding out about this channel, because I keep forgetting to post on the places I was posting originally, but I will go back, and now that we're kind of wrapping up that original application, I will go back and post around those. And yeah, if anyone else has any other feedback, let me know. But have an amazing week, and I will see you back here. If I don't see you beforehand, I'll see you back here next Sunday, and we will build kind of a Spike prototype application. I think we'll build this register your interest one first, and we'll see what we find. Have a great week, everyone. Goodbye.